So there's some solutions that are out there that, they're all pretty similar in the sense that we allow validators to run on multiple nodes for essentially fault tolerance, reliability, security, and decentralization, right? So I think that's the goal of the DVT space, is to decentralize the validators and the operations. SafeStake is taking a little bit of a different approach. So
Hi, I'm Derek with Blockswap Buzz, and we have Chris here with SafeStake. Good to have you here, Chris. How are you?
hey, I'm doing great, Derek. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so you work with this protocol, SafeStake, and before we get into that, I'd like to kind of introduce you a little bit and get to know a little bit more about you, and where you come from and what your role is at SafeStake.
Yeah, sure. To tell you a little bit about me, I'm a I'm a marketing guy, if you will. Been doing marketing basically all my life. That's been my career. So I really like, pushing things forward. And the DVT space really caught my eye when I started staking. And ever since it kind of came out, I've really been interested in it. It eventually led me to where I'm at now, SafeStake. And yeah, we're a DVT solution provider. We're a platform, a protocol, and my role there is to sort of manage the community, but also to lead the marketing efforts in the background and, push this project forward.
Okay, great. So SafeStake, DVT solution, and it's one of the newer ones. I've actually played with it. It's got this simple sort of drag and drop for people to get onboarded. But I guess I'm curious, there's a few other DVT on the market. Where do you guys stand within that? Where do you see your differences?
Yeah, so yeah, as you mentioned, there are some other players in the market. DVT started a little bit before SafeStake came to be. So there's some solutions that are out there that, they're all pretty similar in the sense that we allow validators to run on multiple nodes for essentially fault tolerance, reliability, security, and decentralization, right? So I think that's the goal of the DVT space, is to decentralize the validators and the operations. SafeStake is taking a little bit of a different approach. So we have a solution that handles 32 ETH deposits. That's our current solution, and it's what we'll bring to mainnet first. And that is what you mentioned. It's that simple drag and drop of the key store file. It's meant to be very, very easy for end users, solo stakers, anybody who's got a key store file can just drag and drop that in, agree to pay the monthly fee, and you've got a DVT validator running, right? So a couple of differences with SafeStake. After this initial code base launches, we will begin testing a second version of the code base that'll lower the ETH deposit down to, it was going to be 8 ETH. Now we've lowered it to 2 ETH for an initiator deposit. So that'd be an operator on the network who wants to start a pooled validator. And that'll be built right into the protocol along with our DKG solution. So that allows 4 operators to come together and create a secure key pair, right? Your public and private keys. And nobody ever knows the secret, can ever get to the original key, anything like that. So I'd say those are some of the differences. we've written our solution in Rust. So it's the only solution that is written in that programming language. And, you know, we feel that it's rock solid, bulletproof when it comes to smart contracts.
So
Yeah.
I have a few questions. So for somebody, I'm not a technical person. Well, I understand a lot of the tech, but I'm not a developer myself, I should say. What does that mean? You guys are developing in Rust. How is that different than using Solidity or another programming language?
Right. So essentially, and I'm not a tech or coder either, Derek. So, you know, you and I are kind of on the same page there. But really what it is it's the language that we've chosen that our developers again feel that is it's better performance than say Go, which some of our competitors are written in. It's again a little bit more secure from what I understand. And again, not being a coder, I couldn't tell you why, but what I can tell you is that when it comes to smart contracts, it just provides an extra level of security there. And because the entire SafeStake protocol runs on smart contracts, you know, we wanted the very most secure thing we could find.
Okay, got it. And then there's another question. You're explaining SafeStake, and you were talking a little bit about that you guys have this on-ramp for people. Are people required to join your liquids, your pools, or is there some different routes that people can get involved with SafeStake?
Yeah, I mean, essentially right now, as I mentioned, you have to import a, you know, 32 ETH validator. So that's, you know, code base number one, stage one. That'll be what exists probably for, you know, a little while out there on mainnet. Once stage two comes, then that's where our liquid staking would take place. My guess there is that the threshold would be lowered, but you'd still be able to take part in if you had your own 32 ETH validator, it would handle that. You would just get back a liquid staking token. Now that's if you know, went right to SafeStake. But as we both know, we've tested the interface between a Stakehouse validator and bringing that in. And that was just that simple, you know, import of the key. So there you go. I mean, it was a super easy, you know, on-ramp from your protocol. We're not going to touch that liquid staking, you know, on our side. It's going to stay over, you know, Stakehouse side, and you're just going to get the DVT through SafeStake. So there you
Yeah,
go.
easy interfaces that are fully compatible are super helpful. Yeah, that's kind of what we were trying to do with Stakehouse is, you know, be able to be a part of all the infrastructure.
Yep.
So I guess I want to kind of take a little bit of a step back, and get a little bit of a conversation going around DVT in general. So, you know, there's a lot of different parts to DVT, and I think some of it can be particularly confusing to somebody who doesn't understand the language or isn't involved with staking. Are there any parts of DVT that you see people getting wrong or getting stuck on in their understanding, or that took you a little bit to get over the hurdle that you think people would want to get cleared up before they really start to dig into DVT?
Yeah, I think really probably the biggest misunderstood term in the DVT space is it relates back to DKG, the distributed key generation. And really what that is, a lot of people think that is the splitting of the key and sending it out to the nodes that are going to manage the validator. But really what that and that's part of it, but the beginning part of it really is the operators coming together, independent operators being able to come together to securely generate a key pair without anybody ever having any knowledge of the private key or the secret that was used to share it. That's tended to be the sticking point at DVT in DVT. There's various levels of where the different players are at with DKG. Again, ours won't come into play until there are multiple depositors. And in that sense, that is when the multiple operators will need to come together to form the key pair. In the current situation, they don't need to do that because it's the key has already been generated. Somebody owns it, and all they're doing is dragging and dropping it in, and it's splitting it. So that is not DKG. And that is probably the biggest misconception in the
So,
DVT world.
so kind of along that line, when somebody wants to say get their validator off of DVT, I know a lot of people talk about the on-ramps, ways to do it. There's, simple drag and drop interfaces. There's some different, DKG type events. Now, if somebody says, hey, I want to withdraw, what does that look like in DVT? Is the key compromised and people should just remove the validator, or can somebody still run it? What does this look like?
Yeah, so essentially when you want to exit the system, it really is in the case of SafeStake as simple as deleting the validator. However, before you do that, there's probably certain steps you're going to want to take, because your key store file is no longer needed online once you're in the DVT realm. So that key store file can be stored offline. The key shares that have been created are going to do the work via the multiple operator nodes. So when you're exiting from a DVT network like SafeStake, and you want your validator to continue running, right, you're going to need to make sure that you're pulling it off of our network, but then having your key store file available to start a testing, but you don't want anything to double attest. So I'm guessing there's going to be some some things there that people are going to want to make sure that they understand all of the steps that are needed with each solution upon exit.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for that. Um, so I know that there's multiple different approaches, and people are looking at DVT in a few different ways. We have people who are combining it with liquid staking, or more institutional, or working with different types of providers. I'm curious if you think that there's some other ways that people can use DVT outside of what's in the current narrative, because I hear a lot of stuff about people saying liquid staking. This will help decentralize the liquid staking providers. Some people say it's great to work between friends, but maybe there's something people aren't looking at where a solo staker can get a little bit more resilience by themselves. Or what do you see as some other cases for DVT?
Yeah, I think DVT is a great solution for solo stakers all the way up to institutional stakers. But for solo stakers, really, I think what we're talking about is someone, running an operator node. He wants to run, a number of validators and really maximize the potential of that node. And our solution can do that by sort of increasing the node's capacity to run validators by about 10x. So for that solo staking node that can maybe support 10 to 15 validators with X hardware specifications, with those same hardware specifications, of course, meeting a minimum, we could then increase that node's potential by about 10.
Got it.
So I think that's a huge potential right there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then as far as how many times you're distributing the key, I'm curious if you guys, so how many is it with SafeStake? I believe it's 4 different validators. Um, is there a
Yes,
reason behind this number? Is it like because of latency issues, or is that like kind of a perfect number for you?
that's a great question. Somewhere along the way, and it was probably, with SSV being one of the first, right? They had established the 4-operator construct, and I believe that the original DVT spec also talks about a 4-operator construct with 4 key shares being created out of the validator key. So that's really where that came from. I believe it's a combination of the original DVT spec, probably some economies to be had there as far as, being able to charge a certain fee to a validator, and then split that fee amongst 4 operators and still allow the operators to be able to make money. There's probably some financial factors there. Plus, from my understanding, you had to have enough nodes, to have your formula work so that you could have only 3 out of 4 attesting. And that magic number at the bottom is 4. So I think it's the minimum number of nodes at this point. And then the nodes could increase from there. I know we've talked about it. There's no real limit to the number of nodes that the validator could be decentralized over.
Yeah, I mean, if every node is running one piece of every validator, we're just back to centralization again. Just kind of goes full circle. But no, I agree. I like DVT technology. It's an interesting kind of thought, like how far out can it branch? There's probably diminishing returns, and in fact, you start to go too far, you run into different types of issues. So how many nodes with SafeStake, if 3 of them go offline, can that one run everything just fine?
No. And this is not unique to SafeStake. In the 4-operator construct, 3 are required to attest. Only 1 can be offline or compromised. So
Okay.
you've got to have 3 shares coming together. Think of it this way: if only 1 share could do the work, now we're talking about sort of an operator. He's got that share. He could sort of attest on that validator's behalf. This prevents anybody from ever coming together to act maliciously on behalf of the validator, signing a signature that they shouldn't, that type of thing.
Okay, that makes sense. So kind of circling this back a little bit to SafeStake. So can you just run me through like what it looks like? I'm just an average user. I want to stake ETH. I've used a hardware wallet. That's about the extent of my knowledge. Like how am I going to get involved with SafeStake? I know you said there's phase 1 and phase 2.
Yep.
So like phase 1, what's the easiest way for me to do it?
So there's a couple of ways as I see it. You could stake that whole 32 ETH with your get that key on your hardware wallet, and then you could come over to SafeStake site and you could import that key with the drag and drop interface. And again, you'd agree to pay, your monthly fee from validator to the operator committee, those 4 operators, and then you're up and running.
What's that fee determined in?
So that fee is paid in our network's native token. It's called DVT. It's named after the technology. And really at this point, it is set sort of at an arbitrary number. It's 30 DVT tokens per operator in the committee for a total monthly fee of 120 DVT tokens. It's really to test the payment structure because we're still over in testnet. Again, working toward that mainnet solution, but this tests everything, makes sure that works properly.
Okay,
yes,
that makes sense. So phase 1 coming, then phase 2 after that. What does this look like, at the end of Q3, leading into Q4, maybe moving into 2024? Do you have a rough roadmap that you can share with people, or is it all kind of you get it when you get it type releasing?
Yeah, no, we do have a roadmap. It's on our website, so anyone can visit safestake.xyz and check that roadmap out. The website is going through the process of updates. We're just the updates have been completed in the background. We're just waiting for them to be pushed to the live site. So the roadmap is not quite as up to date as it should be, and that it will be shortly. So keep that in mind, but it's there. But just keep checking back for the updates. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So, um, what like is there anything in crypto in particular right now that kind of excites you, where you're like, this is the future. You see these different types of protocols coming, or different narratives, or different types of things with Ethereum staking, where you think that, hey, this is something that, 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5 years even is going to sort of take over, or you're just personally excited to see it, or a use case you want to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about all the liquid staking protocols that have come out. In the ones that are offering some interesting things, and this is not we didn't plan this, right? But the plug back to Stakehouse is that how do we see this working? Well, not everybody's going to have 32 ETH to stake right off the bat, right? So how do they use our DVT? Well, they can go to Stakehouse, do it with 4 while we're still in stage 1, and they're able to come over and get that, validator key imported because you guys, through some magic in the background, are, letting the user with 4 ETH retain the validator key. Cool. So it's things like that are pretty exciting. I don't know a lot about it yet. You and I have touched on it in the past, but how does DVT work with restaking? How is it going to help mitigate slashing when the slashing risks are increased by securing more than one network with the same funds, right? So that's a pretty cool thing that I really want to learn more about. And, I'm in the process, and who knows what's coming. That's the crazy thing. But I'd say those two things to me are probably the most exciting, aside from the fact that, DVT itself is going mainnet, others are. So that tech is finally coming to light after working on it for, a couple of years now. So very cool.
Yeah, it's great. All very, very exciting stuff. I got to say, I am excited too to see, DVT enter that restaking conversation. There's a lot that can be done there. So
Yep.
with that said, kind of moving forward, who are the types of what are the types of projects that DVT, particularly SafeStake is looking to work with and have conversations with? Is it, the typical staking players? Are there other types of protocols that there might be interest in? Who do you want to come and talk to you? Who do you think you can help?
Yep. I think really any liquid staking or staking protocol for that matter, liquid or not, anyone who's got sort of a centralized framework, relatively centralized framework, you know, relatively low number of nodes running validators, DVT can really help to decentralize that framework without affecting the base structure of it, if you will, and messing things up from that perspective. So it's really just decentralizing those keys over multiple nodes. Other than that, everything else can essentially stay the same. And I think it offers a lot of value to centralized staking providers.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, that makes sense. So, what's the best way for these people to get in contact with you or with SafeStake?
I'd say the best way to reach out probably on Telegram, on Discord. Those are probably the best ways to just touch base with us directly. Let us know that you're interested in DVT technology. We're reaching out to a lot of people also in the background. So we've got that going on to sort of let people know that we're out there and are providing a DVT solution as well. That's a little bit different than than our competition, so to speak.
Great. Well, that all sounds very good. Chris, thank you so much for joining me on Blockswap Buzz, taking us through your thoughts on DVT, how SafeStake works, what the future looks like. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, again, thanks, Derek, for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you about DVT and SafeStake, and of course, let us know how we might be able to help in the future.
All right, great. Thanks, Chris.